So for today, we're going to go ahead and cover subtracting integers. So it's lesson 1.3, subtracting integers. Today's the date is the 31st, right, of August. We're going to look at pages 9 through 10. So you want to make sure you write it on your Unit 1 table of contents as well. Right, pages 9 through 10, 1.3, subtracting integers. So we're going to go to pages 9 and 10. Our essential question for today is, how can I subtract integers? We're going to start off by discussing what we're going to do with subtraction problems. Okay? Now, subtracting is basically the same thing as adding integers, what we have already covered. And so we're just going to go ahead and we're always going to turn subtracting or subtraction into addition. Okay, we learned how to add integers last week, right? And from the warm-up, it seems like a lot of you guys have a pretty good idea of how to do that. And so then what we're going to do this week is now we're going to go ahead and take those subtracting problems or subtraction problems and turn them into addition problems. So I'm just waiting because I know some of you are still writing. So if you guys could just wait patiently. Okay, you want to make sure you have your the purple foldable, right? So the one for subtracting integers. So what you're going to do is, I think most of you already did it. You had your paper and you folded it in half, right? Now if you look at the top, some of you guys might have heard this before. Keep, change, change. It's something you can use to remember what to do for the steps. Okay? So the first thing they tell you is to keep, right? So looking at the inside, it says keep the first integer exactly the, what do you guys think? The same. Good. Right? Which means, which one here is my first integer? Right? It says the first integer. Which one here is the first integer?
5.
Is it a positive 5?
No, it's a negative 5. Oh, 4. Negative 5.
It's a negative 5. Negative 5. Okay, it's negative 5. So our first integer is a negative 5, right? Are we going to do anything to this negative 5?
No.
No, right? We're going to keep it what?
Same.
The same, right? It's still going to be a negative 5. So you would write, this is still a negative 5. Okay, so we're not changing anything with that first one. It's going to be exactly the same. Okay, then if you were to close this, right, it says change for the next one. Right? It says change the minus sign to a what?
Positive.
Good, a positive. Okay, so we had a negative 5 minus 4, right? What are we going to be changing? What did it just say? Change the minus, right? We're going to change that to a positive. So what is that going to become?
4.
Plus sign, right? Positive sign. We're going to make that into a positive. Now if you guys close your foldable back up, what does it say on the bottom section? Change again, right? And if you guys read it, it says change the sign of the second integer. Which one's the second integer?
4.
That 4, right? What are we going to change that into? To the
Opposite negative.
opposite sign. right? Because if you notice, this minus sign is with a plus, right? So what's the sign for my 4 then? If we were to separate them, if I were to cover everything up, what do we currently have? It would technically be positive, right? So what's the opposite of a positive 4?
-4.
Negative 4, right? So this is going to become -5 plus, right? Because we already changed it into a positive. So -5 plus, and what did we say?
-4.
-4. Do you guys see how now this is an addition problem?
Yeah.
Right? Before it was subtraction, now it's addition. And we already learned this last week. We have the same signs. So what do we do with integers that have the same sign?
Subtract. Add.
So look at your notes. I'm hearing different things. For the same signs, we're going to add them, right? If you forget, just go back to those integer chips. If we have a -5, we're going to draw just negative signs, right? If we have a -4, what are we going to draw? More negative signs. So if we're adding them, you're just going to add them and keep the sign. So your answer should be what?
-9.
-9. Good. -9. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and move this over to the left side, and we're going to go through and do some examples on the right side. So example number 1. 4 minus a -2. Okay, so looking at the problem we just did, right? What was the first step?
Change the negative to positive. Keep. Oh wait, no.
No. So we have 3, right? Keep, change, change. We're going to keep the 4, right? So let's rewrite it. Let's write it to the right side. That's going to equal. We're going to keep the 4. What happens to the subtraction side? Turns into addition. So we're going to put the positive. So, right, we kept it. We changed that. And now we have to change the -2. So what does -2 change to? +2. Is that a super easy question?
Yeah.
That looks a lot nicer than that one, right? So that's why we do the keep, change, change. And so what's 4 plus 2? 6. Now real quick, if we want to use our number line on this one, right? We want to use our number line on this one. 4 minus a -2. So if you go back to your number line, so page 7, right? We start at 4. Now it says minus a -2. If you hear minus, which way would you go? Left or right? Left. But it's a negative number, so then that means you go the opposite direction. So instead of left, we're going to go right twice. So you end up at 5, 6. Okay? Let's do another example. So let's go back to page, which page?
9 and 10.
What page are we doing notes on?
10.
Okay, I'm going to have to do that in a little bit. Okay. So what does it change to? I mean, sorry, not change to. Number 2, what page are we on? 10, right? So we're going to go ahead and do 10 minus, we'll do minus 15 plus the -2. So now we have 3 numbers, right? Okay, we're going to do the same thing we did earlier. We're going to do it in steps. So how could I break this problem down? What could I look at first? Let's start with the first 2 numbers, right? Cover up that -2. So you have 10 minus 15. So what do we do with the 10?
Keep it.
Keep it. So we're going to keep the 10, right? So I rewrote it over here. What do we do with the negative? Turn it into addition, right? So instead of subtraction, it's addition. And then what do we do to the 15?
Make it negative.
Make it into a negative. So 10 plus a -15. And we still had plus a -2. Do you guys see how now we have all plus signs?
Yeah.
Do you guys see that? Now we can go back to what we were doing last week.
Okay.
Okay, and I know some of you guys like to add the negatives first, right?
Yeah.
So it's a negative 15 and a negative 2. So same signs. 1. What do we do with same signs? Add them and keep the sign, right? So what is negative 15 plus a negative 2? Positive or negative 17? Negative 17. Good. And then we still have the 10, right? So you have 10 plus a negative 17. Yeah, 10 plus a negative 17. Are they the same signs or different signs?
Different.
So what do we do? Subtract. So 17 minus 10. And what did we get there?
Negative 7.
Well, 17 minus 10 is 7, and a lot of you guys are jumping to the final answer, which would be a negative 7, right? Because we have more negatives than we do positives. Good, that was a pretty difficult problem, right? But you can work your way through it as long as you go in steps. Okay, so when you see these problems, just think about, just go step by step, and then you'll get the correct answer, okay? Let's do one more simple problem because I know that was a difficult one. So what if I just give you another easy one? 2 minus, we'll do 8. What do we do with the first number? Keep the 2. What do we do with the subtraction? Change to a positive. And now, was my 8 in parentheses? No, right? So it's not negative. It's actually a positive. So the opposite of a positive 8 is a negative 8. Okay, now we look at our problem. Are they the same signs or different signs?
Different.
What do we do with different signs? Subtract. So what am I subtracting?
8.
And what's 8 minus 2?
6.
6. But do we have more positives or do we have more negatives? So it's a negative 6. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and let you guys work in your groups for a little bit.
Are we working in other groups or just the table?
You're going to work just with your table groups right now. Yeah. So right now you're going to work with the people, at your groups. So we'll do 3 problems. Because we do want you to start homework in class, okay? So we have 5, 6, and then 7. Okay, so number 5 is going to be 10 minus a negative 8. Six is going to be 5 minus 12. And then 7 will give you a string of numbers. Okay, so it's going to be 3 numbers put together. So we'll do 2 minus a negative 5 plus a negative 3. Okay, so you're going to do all 3 problems with your groups. Now, do we have answer keys at your groups?
Yes.
Yes, right? We have answer keys. So we want to see the answers for 5, 6, and 7 so that as we walk around, we can help you. Okay? So make sure you work on those.